The government plans to introduce an additional 50% tax deduction for employers who provide up to 12 months of paid leave for employees engaged in caregiving as part of other family-friendly measures announced in Budget 2025. Min Hui from UNFPA Malaysia commends these measures for their potential to increase women's workforce participation. However, she stresses the need for further government intervention to tackle the gender gap in the labour market.
But what I think is also needed that potentially future budgets and other legislation could cover is that we need to incentivize other family-friendly workplace policies that redistribute the burden of care in the households, because it is very difficult for women to carry the double burden of work, go to work and then come home, perform extra hours of care work. And then how are they supposed to do that? Remain in the labor force if they're not receiving enough support at home, if they cannot afford services, right? So I think in future, we do need to look towards incentivizing things like shared parental leaves with a specific allocation for fathers. What I mean is that in a lot of countries that have parental leaves, what happens is that women tend to take up most of the leave. And if they are away from work for an extended period of time, they start to accrue penalties to their career, right? This comes at the expense of women than men. So it is important that men be given that shared allocation in efforts to redistribute the care burden in the home. So our policies can reflect that norm, that value moving forward.
Min Hui recommends that the government share the cost of parental leave, believing this approach would encourage companies to offer extended paternity leave and promote equitable caregiving responsibilities for both genders.
Right now, the issue is also that most of our parental leave, paternity, maternity leave is fully employer funded. So there is a huge burden on employers. They are fully liable for it, so it means they have to pay for it. You know, they will say things like, oh, there's a cost and things like that. What happens when it's for SMEs, right? In some countries, they have tried to find new and more innovative ways of financing things like maternity and paternity leave so that the cost is shared across people. Some countries do things like tripartite funding. Tripartite funding means the employer, the employee, and the government share the cost of maternity and paternity leaves so that it's more equitable and there is less strain potentially on an employer who might not be able to. This is of course different. Some employers are actually able to but don't want to pay for these kinds of things, right? But moving forward, that care is a collective responsibility, and our policies can reflect that, and our financing for it could also be more sustainable if we share it across. This could be how we ensure that maternity and paternity leave, that there are no unintended consequences that arise from it. Because, you know, if we looked at the news, I think when maternity leave was extended, employers actually reported choosing not to hire women because of the extended maternity leave. We don't want that to happen.